Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending our Caltrain electrification project update here in March of 2024. My name is Greg Parks. I am the public involvement manager for the project. Also with me this evening on behalf of the Caltrain electrification project are Brent Teachin from Caltrain JPB and Joanna Sayers from Balfour Beatty, the design builder for this project. We're very excited to come to you tonight. We have a few items on the agenda. We're going to give a project update. We've made on the progress. We've made a lot of progress over the past year or so, getting very close to project completion. So then we're going to talk about some of the testing that's going to come to your community very soon and what that's going to entail. We're going to talk about some of the safety issues and features, and then we're going to wrap it up at the end by talking a lot about some of the project benefits. But just some housekeeping items before we get started. I think you probably all have noticed that you are currently muted. We will have questions at the end of the presentation. We're going to try to get through these slides quickly and give you as much time as we can for those questions. We know they're very important. There are two primary ways that you can ask those questions. Both of them will work for us. First of all, if you want to ask your question in person, what you can do, speak your question, I should say. You can raise your hand, and then I will ask you to unmute yourself and you will be able to ask your question. So just to test out that feature and make sure that it's working okay, if you live very close to the tracks, if you're one of our neighbors that lives very close to the tracks, can you just go into that? It should be under the little more section, and raise your hand if you live close to the tracks. Okay. I definitely see 8, 9, 10, many hands popping up. So a lot of our neighbors are here tonight, and that's really great. And then if you wouldn't mind clicking it again, and then that will put your hand back down. And then feel free at the end of the presentation to raise your hand again if you want to speak your questions vocally. In addition, a way to ask the questions is in the Q&A. You should also see that in your panel of options. If you're more comfortable typing your question in there, please go ahead and do so, and we will answer your questions that way. So with that out of the way, we are going to go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned, we are going to start with the project overview. So I think most of you are probably pretty familiar, but the Caltrain project is the 51 miles of the Caltrain corridor from San Francisco to San Jose, just south of the Tanian Station. The project cost $2.44 billion. That was all told for all of the components of the project, both of the building, the infrastructure, the trains, all of that. And revenue service is on track to start in the fall of this year. So the project elements, if you're not familiar with that, there is, first of all, the electrification. And the electrification has the primary components of the overhead contact system. The overhead contact system are the foundations, the poles, and the wires that attach to the pantograph, that triangle on top of the train, and supply the power to the electric trains. There are also 10 traction power facilities, both to supply and regulate the 25 kilovolt lines of power to the trains. And there's a signal system that needed to be upgraded to make sure that the signals all worked and were able to coordinate with the new electrical infrastructure. So in addition to electrification, there are also the electric trains themselves. I think this number has gone up every time we've been able to present to you. We are now have 23 7-car train sets that we are able to purchase, a total of 161 cars, and it will be all electric between San Francisco and San Jose. So there still will be diesel service south of San Jose to Gilroy. That service is going to exist, but it will be all electric between San Francisco and San Jose. So that's very exciting. So some key milestones. What have we completed? There were 3,000 foundations consisting of over 2,500 of those OCS poles. If you live close to the train tracks, I'm sure you're very familiar, have seen those. We've completed all 10 traction power facilities, 2.5 million feet of overhead wire along those 51 miles of poles. We've upgraded the signal system from San Francisco to San Jose at 31 grade crossings. And we've energized from Mountain View to San Jose. So if you've been down in that area, you've seen that is fully energized, and there are already test trains that have been running in those 15 miles. And there are currently 8 train sets on Caltrain property, and 4 trains have passed the required 1,000-mile test. and over 1,000 first responders have been trained in public safety related to the new infrastructure. So the upcoming milestones that are still to be complete is we are going to be energizing San Francisco to Mountain View in early 2024, in just a few weeks from now, as a matter of fact. And that's one of the main reasons we're coming to speak to you this evening. And then there will be additional train sets on the property and testing throughout 2024. We'll be bringing in more trains, testing them, bringing those online. There will be a soft launch in summer of 2024, and then we're still on track for that passenger service in September of 2024. So a little bit about the electric train testing that is coming up. So we have been testing, as I mentioned, between Mountain View and San Jose, those 13 miles, since September of last year. So San Mateo to San Jose, we are going to begin testing that just coming up at the end of this week in March 9th. So over the weekend is going to be when we begin testing that San Mateo to San Jose, those 31 miles. And then the full 51 miles, San Francisco to San Jose, we are expecting to be in April of 2024. So each of the 23 train sets do need to be tested. So 4 train sets have completed that 1,000-mile test. The train testing has been between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. most weeknights, and there's 1 to 2 test trains every hour. That's about the frequency that you're going to be able to expect with that. And then, as has always been the case along the Caltrain corridor when you're going through those grade crossings, because of those extra 1 to 2 trains per hour, when a train is testing in your area, you may hear additional noise from the horns, bells, and crossing gates at those grade crossings during the testing of those trains. So in addition, there are going to be some service changes to support the electric train runs between San Francisco and Mountain View. So there will be, and that's going to be on March 9th and 10th, so this coming weekend, and then 2 weekends in April that we have not, I don't think we know the exact dates on those yet. We'll be getting back to the community with that information, but certainly this coming weekend, March 9th and 10th, and 2 weekends in April, there will be morning service. That's when the most significant service impacts will occur. There will be no Caltrain service between San Francisco and Mountain View from approximately 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. So there will be replacement bus bridges at the high ridership stations, San Francisco, Millbrae, Hillsdale, Redwood City, Palo Alto, and Mountain View, and there won't be replacement bus or train service at the other stations. So there will be alternative transit suggestions provided at those stations. So if you can make it to one of those stations where there will be service, that is probably your best bet. The midday service, there will be no impacts on those weekends. So we're going to be running the normal northbound service resumes with train 237 at 12:12. The regular southbound service resumes with train 236 at 11:58. And then in the evening service, there will be some limited impacts, not as significant as the morning service, but the southbound train 280 is going to depart 30 minutes prior to the regular schedule. The last northbound train, 281, will be canceled, and the last southbound train on those weekends, 285, will also be canceled. So a lot of this is going on. The new trains are a big thing. The service interruptions are impacting the communities as well. So we've been having a lot of customer communication in advance of this. We had a web mobile landing page, caltrain.com/status, which is going to tell you about any of these temporary service disruptions. Caltrain mobile app alerts on our mobile app where you can purchase tickets and things like that. We're putting the information there. Then on social media, nextdoor.com, the website, and 511 transit alerts. And then stations and on board, we've had stations signage, notification, and wayfinding. Train seat drops, station ambassadors. There's some photos of our ambassadors who have been out in the community talking about that. Station audio announcements, media releases, and transit alternatives list. So we've been really trying to get out to the community, let them know as soon as we can when we had these testing and service disruptions scheduled. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the safety information. I think one thing to note, it's a positive thing, is that these trains are quieter than the diesel engines, certainly. But what that means is even if you can't hear the new trains coming from a safety perspective, you need to make sure to wait for the gate to fully rise before crossing, because these trains are going to be a little quieter than the community has been used to. And as I mentioned, there's 25,000 volts of electricity in these lines. So we need you to treat all overhead wires as if they're energized and dangerous, because they carry 25,000 volts of electricity, and that can be just extremely dangerous if you're not careful around that. If you see a downed or otherwise damaged overhead wire, please stay at least 25 feet away and call either 1-877-SAF-RAIL or 911 for any emergency on Caltrain. Report suspicious activity, or, in particular related to this, if you see a damaged or downed electrical wire. So again, we've had a public outreach, not just for our service interruptions, but also for our safety campaign. So we've had community meetings, residential mailers, on-board outreach, having a school campaign, public service announcements, and a right-of-way outreach. And we have a new safety video at caltrain.com/safety. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Brent Teachin from Caltrain JPB, and he's going to run us through the electric service benefits.
Great. Thanks, Greg. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brent Teachin, External Affairs Manager for the Electrification Project. Excited to share these overall service plan benefits for the new service that'll be coming online in September 2024. So I've categorized them in a few different buckets. Really excited about the Get There Faster bucket, meaning that the express train from San Francisco to San Jose will be under an hour, very competitive to driving on 101. That quicker local service, which is that train that makes all local stops along the corridor, that currently is about a 100-minute trip. With electric service, that'll be down to 75 minutes. And then those traveling from Santa Clara County, southern Santa Clara County, can save nearly 28 minutes on their trip to San Francisco. There is going to be more frequent service, even though they're going to have the same number of trains per day in September. So those electric trains are able to stop and start more efficiently, providing 20% more service overall to stations, including 26% more service to equity priority stations. And a huge benefit to the electrified service plan is that no matter any time Caltrain is running during the day and weekends, there'll be at least half-hourly service, so 2 trains per hour. But there'll be even more during those peak hours, those peak commute times during weekdays. So this is great for weekends in particular. When you're trying to get to an event, to a Giants game, there'll be half-hourly service on weekends. These new electric trains, if you haven't seen them yet, are very modern, spacious, clean, and very efficient. We're excited to show them off, and they have free Wi-Fi on board, and there'll be a smoother, quieter experience overall. Power outlets at every seat, digital trim information on board to make sure you can get on the right train and know where you're going, and they'll have bathrooms, 1 bathroom per train set. They're also very clean in terms of the environment, providing a reduction of about 250,000 metric tons of carbon per year. That's equivalent to taking 55,000 cars off the road. As Greg mentioned, they are going to be quieter, and they will improve local air quality as well. Next slide, please, Greg. We have some service benefit fact sheets that I'd really like to share with you all. You can go to caltrain.com/service benefits. You can select your specific city that you live in, and you'll see a fact sheet like this showing how much more service you'll get for your station that you frequent, and then the travel times on the back as well, showing the travel time benefits for those stations as well. I think it highlights 3 major stations: San Francisco, Palo Alto, and San Jose, for each station along the corridor. Next slide, please. And then, as I mentioned, we had 2 public tours last year, had a great turnout, and are planning 1 more in San Mateo County at San Carlos Station. Current date we're looking at is May 11th, 2024. It's also National Train Day, so we'll be celebrating that. That'll be at San Carlos Station here in San Mateo County. We'll have a chance to get on board the train, as well as celebrating 160 years of Caltrain passenger service on the Caltrain corridor. It's a very family-friendly, community-focused event with community booths, food trucks, live music, and just a great chance to get out and see these new trains before they're in service this fall. I think that's our last slide, Greg, and we're happy to take any questions. Oh, here's some contact information. If you are not already, please go to caltrain.com/get-involved and sign up for our newsletters. If you have any questions that aren't answered today, or you think of something later, you can always email us at these calmod@caltrain.com or this phone number here and give us a call.
All right.
I think we already have some questions in the chat. Greg, did you want to start with those?
Yeah, we do have some questions in the chat already. So one of the questions was about the double track and electrified service to Gilroy. Brent, do you have, I mean, I know Caltrain is planning, has plans for that, but I don't know if we had like a schedule update on that long term.
I don't have any specifics. We're working with in coordination with our partners at the state level for that piece. If I'm not sure who that was, but if they can email us at CalMod at the email here, I can follow up with the right staff to get a more detailed answer than I can give at this time.
Yeah, that was Scott. So Scott, if you wouldn't mind emailing us about that, we'll try to get more information on that to you. So the next question we have is what the soft launch entails.
Yeah, the soft launch entails putting one or two new electric trains out there in service per week. So that would start ramping up the electric service as we transition from diesel currently to a mixed fleet in that short time frame, that month or two between the summer and September, where we would then have full electric service in September. So it's just us introducing those trains into service, letting people get on, still in a testing phase, but they're safety certified and everything, but just making sure we can run them in our passenger service as we get ready for a full electrified service between San Francisco and San Jose.
Okay, great. So the next question we have is about someone lives near the station. They live on Townsend and Fifth, and the diesel trains, particularly at that station, do run. They do idle until 2 a.m. or later sometimes. And does electrification mean the engines will turn off earlier? Well, I think, and Brent can correct me if I'm wrong, but that should be almost eliminated, entirely with the electric trains. The diesel engines, they do sit there and idle, and the idling noise for the electric trains should be almost insignificant if they're idling at all. Is that right, Brent?
Yeah, as we'll have full electric service between San Francisco and San Jose. So there'll be very few, if at all, diesels up at San Francisco station. We will still have diesel service down to Gilroy between San Jose and Gilroy. But between San Francisco and San Jose, there will be only electric trains. So there shouldn't, after September of 2024, there should be very few, if at all, diesels up at San Francisco station. That is, they do some light maintenance on those trains. That's why they're currently idling now. And our service does run, I believe, from 4 a.m. to 2 a.m. So that's why they're out there now. But in September, there should be very few, if at all, diesels at that station.
All right. And we have a question about why the San Jose to San Mateo testing isn't restricted to after hours and nighttime as San Jose Mountain View was. I do want to say that actually back in the fall of 2023, there were a handful of weekends where we did actually have to restrict some service in those areas. These are just targeted weekends, so there should only be 3 weekends where this is happening, and then the rest of the testing over the next several months will be done so as not to interfere with the service. So I think there's 2 kinds of testing. There's the testing of the infrastructure itself. So we're kind of like we're testing the trains, but we're also testing the poles and the wires and all of the infrastructure to make sure that all works. And those are the kinds of tests that we're doing in March and April, and those are going to require some service impacts. But then the regular testing over the course of the next several months, we will be able to limit the service interruptions there. So again, it's just going to be this coming weekend and a couple weekends in April, and then those should be the only targeted service disruptions for that.
Yeah, Greg, I just want to clarify. I want to make sure everybody knows there's, as you mentioned, there's two different types of tests. One where we have to test the infrastructure. That'll be this upcoming weekend and in April. Those are what we call live run tests here at Caltrain. And then after that is done, we do that 1,000-mile test. Each trip of those trains has to get 1,000 miles. That'll still be continued to be done at night, as it is currently between San Jose and Mountain View. So I'm not sure if that was the specific question. Adrian, I'm happy you can reach out to me and we can talk more if you'd like. But there will be testing of what those 1,000-mile tests are pretty frequently after this weekend, upcoming weekend.
And then someone wants to know if there are any MP 36 PHs that will stay in service between Tamian and Gilroy. So I'm just not sure. I don't know the answer to that, Brent, of which trains specifically will remain in service between there.
Yes, I believe the MP36s will still remain. Some of the F40s, the older trains, will be retired. I'm not sure exactly how many off of the top of my head will be there for diesel service. Those are the newer, the newer of the diesel trains.
Yes.
New meaning 2003, I think.
All right, we have an anonymous attendee. They say the train near me is active 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. So I guess without knowing exactly where you were, what I would say is right now, depending on where you are, there could be some construction activity going on. And construction activity, if that's happening during the night in order not to interfere with the revenue service, you know, perhaps that is one of the things that you're hearing late at night outside of Caltrain service hours. And so when construction is done, you will not be hearing the construction crews out there, and the horns, you know, won't be sounding for those crews. But if what you're hearing kind of late at night are more like the freight trains, there will be freight trains that are still operating along the Caltrain corridor during those regular hours. I think that just kind of depending on what kind of noise you're hearing, if it's construction noise, that will be abated, but there certainly will be some noise that is occurring along the corridor even after electrification. Brent, did you want to say something about that? Or okay, all right. Thank you for that. Is it planned to reduce the 3 horn signals on crossings with the new improved safety at the crossings? I believe that the current FRA horn regulations will still stay the same with the new trains versus the old. But I do know when you're saying now improved safety, I think, again, that kind of just depends on what particular city you are in. I know some cities are going through grade separation projects. And then separately from that, some cities are going through their own quiet zone programs, right? So if you're in a city that is going for a quiet zone permit with the CPUC, then perhaps if that comes into effect, that would reduce that. But as far as like standard operating along the Caltrain corridor, those FRA regulations will stay in effect for the new trains, just as they are with the old. Will there be better signage at the stations? I assume this means like the scheduling signage. And Brent, I don't know if there are any upgrades for anything like that. I'm assuming he's talking about the next arrival signs.
Yeah, there are plans for certain stations to get upgraded overhead visual message signing and audio signing, audio announcements at the station. Yes. So, and I will say these new electric trains will have a lot more information on board the train as well. As soon as you get on, there's a screen. There'll be audio announcements to help you understand and make sure you're getting on the right train and getting where you want to go, as well as front end and side head signs on board the electric train to tell you the destination of that train.
All right. And then they're asking about electrification with regard to Caltrain fares. I think, Brent, is Caltrain still studying their current fare structure? Is that still? I think that's occurring as part of a separate effort, but not necessarily having to do with with electrification, right?
Yeah, it does not have to do with electrification. There are no planned, fare increases as part of this project. There are currently some fare promos actually that we're really incentivizing people to get on board. You can go to caltrain.com/promos. There's some 3-day passes. There is $1 youth fare. Any individual under 18 can ride Caltrain with any zone, any place along the corridor for $1 using Clipper. It's a great way to get around for students and those under 18. So there's no planned fare increases as part of this project or in the near future.
Okay. And then I think a follow-up question is something we was asked earlier. Are any of the 1998 F40s going to stay?
I don't know specifically what locomotives are planned to stay.
Okay.
I'm happy to follow up.
Okay. And then there's a question about the GPS tracking. I assume that has to do with the app. I know that the new Caltrain electric trains they're going to be Wi-Fi enabled. I don't know, Brent, will that have any impact on the GPS tracking of the trains?
Yeah, they will be Wi-Fi and broadband enabled, both for passengers and for our information systems. So I do hope they are very accurate in terms of their display on the live map. I'll pass that along to our web team to see if there's anything in particular going on there, though.
And then there's a question about bike capacity, and I used to have this number memorized, and I don't anymore. Brent, what is the capacity that the trains are going to have for those bikes?
Yes, each of the 7-car train sets will have 2 bike cars on board, and that will be 72 bikes.
Great. And then we have a question about PG&E outages. Yes, so that there is some redundancy built into the system. I think I mentioned the 10 traction power facilities earlier. 2 of those facilities are actually traction power substations. So you have PG&E interconnections in 2 different places. One in the northern part of the project in South San Francisco, and then one in the southern part of the project in San Jose. So if there is a power outage in the northern part of the peninsula or the southern part, one of those traction power stations would be able to power the entire system for a limited amount of time while the other side was brought back online. So hopefully we're not having a whole peninsula, all the way from San Francisco to San Jose power outage. We're hopeful we wouldn't have an outage of that magnitude. But if there was, one in the northern part or one in the southern part of the alignment along those 51 miles, there is redundancy with those 2 traction power substations. Can we get the Caltrain mobile app to address real-time schedule, service outages, construction impacts? So I think,
Yeah, Greg, I can answer that. We are working with a third party to provide notifications, pushed notifications out to our customers, where you will be able to sign up and get a notification for your particular train or station. You can tell it what times you want notifications. So if you go to work every day and only Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, ride the train, you will be able to do that. So we are working on a new system to make sure we get the right information out to our riders in one place. Agree that with these beautiful new trains, we do need an elegant approach in a way to make sure our customers can know where they're going and can trust that Caltrain is getting them the right information on time.
Thanks, Brent. Does Union Pacific still have permission to operate on the Caltrain corridor when the electric trains run? The answer to that is yes. Our tenant service, we also have some commuter tenants like Altamont Corridor, Capitol Corridor. All of our tenants that run diesel service will still be able to operate their trains on the electrified corridor. So the electrification is not going to preclude them, including the Union Pacific. Will Gilroy-bound passengers have to transfer trains in San Jose? Brent, I believe the answer to that is yes. Is that correct? If you're going all the way up to...
Yeah,
okay.
We will have all electric service between San Francisco and San Jose at the Gilroy station, or excuse me, at San Jose Diridon station. Those traveling south to Gilroy would have to transfer to a diesel train. That is going to be a timed 3-minute transfer. Same platform. It is done at a lot of different agencies, including at BART, where you can just walk across the platform and get onto the correct train you need to go. So it's going to be very well coordinated to make sure folks can get on that train and continue their trip either south to Gilroy, or if they're coming from Gilroy north to San Francisco. Allowing folks, or having that trip be electric from San Francisco to San Jose does increase, or does improve, the travel time overall for those coming from South County. So we thought it was a good balance to make sure those traveling from South County got the travel benefits of the new electric trains when they're traveling north. Based on our ridership, a lot of those traveling from Gilroy do continue north to either southern Santa Clara County or southern San Mateo County or northern Santa Clara County.
All right, thanks, Brent. We do have a question about the Bayshore station. It looks like the question is related to both shuttle service there and the elevators. So I know that the elevators have been under construction for a while. Brent, do we have an update on when the elevators might be complete? And then also, is it Caltrain that operates the shuttle, or do you know about that at Bayshore?
So I don't know of any shuttles off the top of my head. I believe commute.org does provide some shuttles. I'm not sure exactly where they go. I do know the elevators have been an issue. I'm not sure what in particular what the issue is. They're not under construction. They are just not working fully properly.
Okay.
So I would have to follow up. If that person wants to email us at calmod@caltrain, I can follow up with more detailed information. But off the top of my head, I do not have that information.
How many bathrooms are on the new trains? I think the answer there's one bathroom on each train set. Is that correct?
Yep, one bathroom.
And again, so yeah, there's a follow-up there. Same question. It is one per train set, not per car. Yeah, and then someone again asked about the app and the construction notices. So yes, right now the Caltrain electrification website is the best place to get the construction notices. Also, if you want to sign up for our construction updates, we can email those to you weekly. Those are the best places right now. But as Brent mentioned, we are looking to make improvements to our mobile apps and things so that we can find all of that in one place. We do appreciate that would be a good improvement. Lost my place here. Sorry.
Greg, I just want to pause. I really appreciate all these questions. We have a lot more, and we're going to try to get through all of them. But I wanted to make sure, folks, if you had any specific questions, you're welcome to email us at calmod@caltrain.com. I know it is 6:04 now. Like I said, we're here until we answer the last question, but wanted to make sure that folks knew that we're going to be going through these questions, and no more presentation particularly, or formal presentation, but we're just going to be going and answering these questions.
And I do, yeah. So just we get those emails. So if we weren't able to answer your question or answer it fully, please do email that, and we will answer those questions offline and research those answers as best we can. Thanks, Brent. With the current number of trains, is there a possibility of even more trains per hour if there's enough demand? Belmont will be losing express trains due to the upgrade. So, I mean, I think the short answer is certainly more demand would mean more trains, but I also know that's just the short answer. The long answer is I believe Caltrain is kind of like studying ridership now. Is that right, Brent?
Yeah, we are doing we have a lot of efforts that we're trying to increase ridership. Currently, we're going to have 104 trains per day. As I mentioned, we are going to see increased frequency at stations because of the efficiency of trains. We don't have any current plans to increase that service beyond 104, but as soon as ridership allows, as well as funding allows, we would increase that service to meet that demand. Yes.
Do we have a date when the first electric trains will run for the first time for passengers. It's a tentative date. I think it's September 20. What is it, Brent?
So our project completion
Into
is
September?
September. Yeah, our project completion's at the end of September. But we are mentioning the soft launch, we talked about the
Oh,
soft launch
right, true.
process.
Yeah.
So that would be the summer before September. We don't have a date yet, but we will definitely be getting that date out as soon as we have something to share.
Yeah, and actually this has been brought up before, so I'm not sure if there's a power outage on the peninsula, would diesel trains be used, in an emergency capacity if necessary?
Yes, if both of the traction power facilities were for some reason had an outage, we would utilize diesels to run limited service. But as you mentioned, we are able to use either of the San Jose traction power facility or the South San Francisco traction power facility to provide power to the full corridor in the event of one of them goes out. If both goes out, then yes, we'd have to look at utilizing diesels to provide service.
What will happen if a tree falls onto the electric lines? Well, aside from the safety issue, which is if you see that and if there's an issue, make sure you call 1-877 Safe Rail and stay 25 feet away. But I think one of the things that could happen, I mean, every situation will be different, but there'd probably be some kind of impact to service. But I also think that single tracking would be a possibility if it was only if it was localized and it was affecting one set of the lines, that perhaps the trains could run on the other side of the tracks. But I don't know, Brent, if you have any more details on what would happen, something like a tree were to fall on the electric power lines.
Yeah, unfortunately, we saw that happen in the winter storm this past month in February. The lines were not energized at that time, but we know it's a very big risk if for our project and for the agency as a whole. There's a lot of work happening on that. I think I've saw some other questions about trees, so I'll just kind of try to answer those as one. We are working with cities along the corridor, a few in particular, to make sure we can prune and remove trees in coordination with them on any city-owned trees to heavily reduce this risk as we move forward. We're also staffing up to make sure we have the right tree maintenance and removal folks, as well as the right OCS, overhead contact system, that wire installation crews, to make sure we can rapidly respond in the future if this were to happen in a live electrified service scenario.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Someone also asked a question about eucalyptus trees, and so I think that's topical there. What is the seating configuration? Well, I mean, I think the seats are configured in the trains in a few different ways. Certain cars are by level. There are, obviously there are seats that are sitting 2 by 2. There are some seats that are configured where there's like a table and there's seats facing in either direction. So there's not really one specific answer to that, but I would encourage you to either come to the public event we're going to have at San Carlos, and you can get on the train and see for yourself. Or I believe you could take a look at that on our virtual reality experience on our website if you kind of wanted to take a look at what those seating configurations would look like for yourself. Um, and have the new schedules. The new schedules have not yet been shared. Is that right? That'll be
Yeah, we're hoping to share that in the late spring, early summer timeframe. They need to do some testing, which we talked about tonight, in terms of making sure the actual time runs for the trains are what they think they are going to be. These are brand new trains for us, and want to make sure we get the schedule right before we share a detailed schedule. But the overall service plan is finalized in terms of how much each station will be getting served in September.
And then I think someone did come late and asked about the next electrification train tour. That's May 11th, right, Brent? In San Carlos is the tentative date for that.
Yes, we're
Okay.
looking to finalize in the next week or two, but if you want to sign up and get the first invite to that, you can go to caltrain.com/get involved, sign up to receive our e-newsletter. That'll be the first place we send out more details about that event and that time.
Okay. Thanks. And then here's a fun question about Santa Clara possibly, Santa Clara hosting the World Cup. So would Caltrain have a plan for any service increases with that? I know Caltrain sometimes does increase service for things like Giants games. So would there be a plan for that for something like the World Cup?
Yeah, definitely. We'd work in coordination with our other transit agency partners as well as the organizers to make sure we have the appropriate service, increased service to meet that demand.
And then will they be able to consume food and water on the trains like they are able to do so now?
Yeah, there's going to be no change in policy in terms of people drinking or eating on board the trains. Yeah, I think I saw the question that there will not be water or food service though, so there's no
Oh,
food
not food
or
service. Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry. I read that wrong. There won't be service on the trains, right? But you'll still be able to have it. Yeah, I read that wrong. That's my apologies. So yes, there won't be service on the train, but you will still be able to consume food and beverage on the train. All right.
I think I saw one about the gates. I just wanted to mention that one. So there was a system installed. Greg mentioned that was completed as part of the project. It's installed and tested and in operation at all 31 crossings. We are going to be doing an improvement to that, which will utilize the wireless information from the new trains, as well as information from the diesel trains to improve that. That's looking to be implemented by mid 2024, so summer of 2024. We plan to have that implemented and tested.
And then we have a question about ridership during upcoming baseball season that's about to start, if any trains will be increased beyond the current number of the 4 cars per train.
Sorry, I'm reading that question real quick.
Okay, sure.
I don't know of any plans for increasing the actual passenger cars per train. I can pass that along to our operations. I know they do usually uh, add cars based on demand, but I'll pass that along to them.
Okay, thanks, Brent. And I'm sorry, a lot of these are for you, Brent, tonight. You're kind of getting all of most of these, but ridership impacts for COVID. I know that certainly, just like any transit agency, Caltrain was impacted by COVID. But what is the current? I know percentage of ridership recovery. I saw some recent figures on that.
We are around 30% of our previous ridership.
Okay. Will any future grade separation projects on the Caltrain corridor result in a major suspension of electrified service? I think the answer to that is no, and those projects are being planned so as not to cause any major disruptions. I think that a lot of the cities in Caltrain are working together for some of these upcoming projects in places like Mountain View and Burlingame, and they're fully aware of the OCS and the contractors that are being asked to very much take that into careful consideration with their planning of how they're going to build those and install the OCS as part of that. So I don't know, Brent, if you have any other details on that, but my understanding is no, that should not result in a suspension of electrified service.
That's correct, Greg. Yes.
All right.
I saw one about the trains themselves, if they have either a locomotive or distributed power. They are distributed power. They also will have regenerative braking, meaning that other trains along the corridor can reuse that power once it goes back into the overhead line. Sorry, I do see Adrian's hand is raised. I
Oh,
want to make
right.
sure.
I'm sorry. There's over. I needed to go over and look at the hand raised. So yeah, sorry about that, Adrian. I'm going to asked you to unmute yourself. Are you able to do that?
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Okay, great, sure.
I just wanted to amplify, Brent just touched on it. The grade crossings that we had, the activation circuits for the grade crossings that Caltrain has had for decades was not compatible with electrification because it used an AC circuit, and that would interfere with the AC current coming from the overhead lines returning through the rails. So Caltrain has implemented a new crossing activation system called dual speed check. And that has resulted in what a lot of people in the community have noticed is a lot of excess gate downtime versus before. And some false activations, or double activations, I should call it. When the train stops in a station, the downstream gates from that station go down, and then they time out, and then the train leaves and they go down a second time. So what Brent was talking about is that staff is planning throughout this year to install a wireless crossing optimization system that uses GPS to more accurately determine, and the train control system to determine if a train is stopping in a station or how fast it's going. And it will basically optimize and greatly reduce. Staff has given a presentation on this earlier to some of the board and advisory committees, but will greatly reduce the downtime, the gate downtime that a lot of people are seeing and getting frustrated with on the peninsula. So that's just something I wanted to share.
Great, thank you. I see another hand is up. So James Robinson, if you would like to go ahead and speak, I've tried to unmute you there. James, are you there? Let me try again. Ask to unmute. Well, I am not seeing James, so I've asked you to unmute yourself, James. So if you're there, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and oh, I think you did unmute yourself. James, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Great.
Okay, great. This is my first Zoom meeting with Caltrain. I had a question. I don't know if it's been answered already. Is the Amtrak electric locomotives going to be tested with the gallery cars for the test?
There are not plans to currently use that AEM7 for testing, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let's see. So I think we've had a couple, again, a couple questions about the soft launch. So I think that's been mentioned. That's going to be over the summer. We don't have the exact dates on that yet, but stay tuned. So a couple questions about that. The 160th anniversary, Brent, when is that going to be, that celebration going to be?
We'll be celebrating during our electric train tour as well. So it's 160 years of passenger rail service on the corridor, not 160 years of Caltrain in particular.
Okay.
But 160 years of passenger rail service on the corridor. So we'll be having some special events or some special activities at the next electric train tour on May 11th. I do see a question about, what is the schedule and location for train testing in the coming months. This upcoming weekend, there is a chance if you wanted to see them in person, running down the corridor on a platform on the tracks, you can go to any of the stations between Menlo Park and San Antonio Station. They'll be running there this weekend. So I just ask that you please stay on a publicly accessible platform behind the yellow line, at least, if not further away from the tracks. They'll be running from midnight to about noon this Saturday and Sunday on the corridor. After that, they are going to be doing their 1,000-mile runs, which we mentioned earlier, and those will be almost every weeknight between Mountain View and San Mateo.
Great.
We know it's a very exciting time for us on the project, so happy to have people go out and see them in action. But please, again, just make sure you're safe and in a publicly accessible area behind the yellow line, if not further away from the tracks. I shared the electrics. If you can go back to a few slides, Greg, please. Just want to make sure folks had that website for the service plan benefits. I think 1 or 2 slides. That one there, please. Thanks.
Great. All right.
Yeah, so caltrain.com/service benefits has some detailed fact sheets about all of the frequency as well as the time savings for each of the stations. So it's a great resource, and we'll be sharing that more and more as we get ready for service in September.
I missed this one towards the top. It's kind of compared to BART, how noisy are they? I assume the electric trains. I think that they're similar and they're different. They're similar in that they both run on electricity, so they accelerate and decelerate. And I think that it kind of depends on what noise you're talking about. I think on BART, a lot of the noise that you hear actually is from the steel wheel on the steel tracks. And I believe that the Caltrain trains would be less noisy in that regard. But as far as the electricity and the acceleration and that sort of thing, they should be similar. So they're not like a diesel train that like revs up and has that locomotive sound to it. It's just kind of more of a like a whoosh sound is what you should hear.
I see a question about who made the electric trains. The electric trains are made in Utah, or manufactured in Utah at Salt Lake City by a company called Stadler. It's a Swiss company. They have great trains throughout Europe and throughout the world, really. So we're very excited to have them here. This project in particular was allowed them to build a full facility that manufactured these trains in Salt Lake City and are seeing a few other agencies in the US use them now. So really excited about that opportunity for them and for these trains.
And what's okay, a couple questions from Merrick about the trains themselves. So the maximum speed at regular service, is that 73 miles an hour? Is that right?
79.
79. All right.
Yes.
That's close. Okay. And then asking about the emergency braking, the emergency brake system on the electric trains. Do we know anything about that as compared to the current trains?
I do not have any information compared to the current trains, no.
Okay.
We do know that accidents along the corridor are unfortunate and tragic, and we do have a lot of safety outreach, engineering as well that we're going through to make sure we can reduce that impact. Thanks, Adrian. Adrian mentioned in the chat, I don't think all participants can see it, but there are videos on YouTube of the Stadler KISS trains running in Europe, and you can see how they sound. So if you're curious, you can go to YouTube and search. They are called Stadler KISS trains, and you can see them running on other properties throughout the world.
All right. And someone's asking if there will be Caltrain lanyards at the event. Well, there might be, but what I can tell you is there will be a lot of really great swag. So definitely things will be given away at that event. I think sometimes it varies from one event to the next, but there certainly will be a lot of great items, a lot of great fun at the Caltrain event, and possibly some lanyards as well. Yes. I
think that was all of them, Greg. So we'll stay on for another minute or two. Oh, I see. Sorry, another one. Any enhancements in safety in regards to unauthorized entry on the tracks? This is always a challenge for us, but we are working to install, more fencing along the corridor and working with our transit police to reduce that as much as possible and eliminate it. So that is something we're working on in coordination with our city and law enforcement partners. And then, as Greg mentioned, there are lots of grade separations in the planning and in the planning stages to help with that issue as well.
Yeah, and then we do have another question about the EMUs testing all the way to San Francisco. Right, we're looking at April for that, right, Brent?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so we do know for a fact this coming weekend will be the test to San Mateo to San Jose, and then San Francisco to San Jose. We don't know exactly when we're planning for that in April.
Yeah, the only nuance I would add to that is this weekend it'll be from Redwood City down to
Oh,
Mountain
Redwood
View.
City. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And then later this month we'll expand up to San Mateo. So that's a new
Got it.
development for me.
Okay.
But yes, that is.
Oh, okay, great.
So later this month, San Mateo, and then April it'll be all the way to San Francisco.
Okay.
Oh, and that is a great question, Kyle. Thank you for asking that. And I think there was a question in the chat. I'm not sure if it was Kyle as well, but there are plans, and there's actually funding and a train that'll be procured or bought by Caltrain to test what is known as a battery electric train that would charge a battery on an electric train using the overhead wires between San Francisco and San Jose. It would then drop that pantograph, which Greg mentioned earlier, which connects the wire to the train. And then it would continue an electric battery operated train down to the Gilroy section. There is a lot of work too with agencies down south in Salinas and Monterey to potentially in the future extend that service even further down south. There was a question about the May 11th event. That will just be a static train. It will not be moving, so you would just get on board for that. If you wanted to see it moving but not get on board, you can go to our stations, as I mentioned, this weekend or in the evenings on weeknights in the future. But to get on board a moving train, we have to wait until summer when we'll have our soft launch, which we're all very much looking forward to.
I think we just got another one about how many trains per hour. It's 2 trains per hour will be tested, right, Brent?
Yes, they need to make about 14 train runs this weekend over 12 hours. So 1 to 2 trains per hour this weekend. And we will be running trains weeknights after that, about 1 to 2 trains per hour as well. And I think we're reaching our 6:30 time frame. There's still quite a few people on. One last minute for questions. Feel free to type them in. Can you go to the last slide again, Greg? I just want to make sure people have that email. And I saw a note that somebody sent an email but didn't get a response. I'll make sure to check and see that we didn't miss something. So I apologize for that. We'll respond if we have it. But yeah, our email is calmod@caltrain.com. I'm very excited about this project and its completion later this year, and excited to share these new electric trains with folks. I see one more question. Why do the wires extend to Tamian if the EMUs are only going to run to San Jose? So the electric trains will actually run down to Tamian as well. We don't only own one of those tracks. So the electric trains will run down to Tamian. But if for that transfer, it makes the most sense to do at at Diridon, because there are so many platforms that we're able to have 2 trains stationed there, one electric and one diesel, where folks can walk across and get on board the diesel to continue south. So there will be electric trains down to Tamian. All right, I think this is the last question we'll take. When will we know the first date of when the general public can ride an electric train? After all this testing is done, we are hoping to announce a date for our soft launch, which again is planned for the summer. So please sign up at caltrain.com/get involved. That's really the best way to know about any milestones or upcoming dates for the project. So really encourage you to do that, and that'll be the first place we start announcing those significant milestones for us. Don't know exactly when that's going to be. We hope the late spring timeframe we can have a solid date for soft launch. All right, we are at 8:30. Thank you all again so much for attending and joining us tonight. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We hope to see you at our upcoming events, and we'll hope to see you on board later this year for the summer. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone.